Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Pariprajaka Sto Sri Srimad A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda Ki Jai, Namacharya Sri Haridas Thakur Ki Jai, Prem Sakaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, Sri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai, Sri Sri Radha Krishna Gopinath Sham Kund Radha Kungidi Govardhan Ki Jai, Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai, Pradeep Dham Ki Jai, Jagannath Puri Ki Jai, Gangamai Ki Jai, Ramanamai Ki Jai, Tulsi Devi Ki Jai, Bhakti Devi Ki Jai, Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. Gaur Premanande. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Because my voice is having trouble, I'll need someone else to lead the chanting of the verse and read the word for word and translation and purport. No. Yeah, okay. Good. Yeah, go.
Na ghatata udbhava prakriti purushair ajayor ubhaya yuja bhavanti ashubhrito jalabhudapat Tvaita ime tato vividhanam gune parame Sharita ivarnave madhune liliyur ase sharashaha
Slower.
Na ghatata udbhava prakriti purusur ajayor Ubhaya yuja bhavanti ashubhrito jalabubudabhat Tvayita ime tato vividhanam gune parame Sarita ivarnave madhune lilayor asesha rashaha Na ghatata udbhava prakriti purusayr ajayor उभय युजा भवन्ति अशुभृतो जल बुबूदवत् त्वयि तयिमे ततो विविधनामगुणे परमे सरितैवार्णवमधुनि लीलयोरशेषरसाः ना घटते does not happen. Udbhavaha, the generation, Prakriti of material nature, Purusayo, and of the soul, who is her enjoyer, Ajayoha, who are unborn, Ubhaya, of both, Yuja, by the combination, Bhavanti, come into being, Asubhritaha, living bodies, Jala, on water, Budbuddha, bubbles, but like, Tvai, in you, Te ime, these living beings, Tataha, therefore, Vividha, various, Nama, with names, Gune, and qualities, Parame, in the Supreme, Saritaha, rivers, Eva, as, Arnae, within the ocean, Madhune, in honey, Liliyo, become merged, Asesha, all, Tasaha, flavors. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Avacharana Ravinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Neither material nature nor the soul who tries to enjoy her are ever born. Yet living bodies come into being when these two combine, just as bubbles form where water meets the air, and just as rivers merge into the ocean, or the nectar from many different flowers blends into honey. So all these conditioned beings eventually merge back into you, the Supreme, along with their various names and qualities. Purport. Without proper spiritual guidance, one may misunderstand the Vedas' description of the living entities emanating from the Lord to mean that they have come into being in this process and will eventually pass again into non-existence. But if the living entities were to thus have only temporary existence, then when one of them would die, his remaining karma would simply vanish without being used up. And when a soul would be born, he would appear with unaccountable karma he had done nothing to earn. Furthermore, a living being's liberation would amount to the total eradication of his identity and being. The truth is, however, that the soul's essence is one with Brahman's, just as the small portion of space contained within the walls of a clay pot is one in essence with the all-expanding sky. And like the making and breaking of a pot, the birth of an individual soul consists of its first becoming covered by a material body, and his death or liberation consists of the destruction of his gross and subtle bodies once and for all. Certainly such birth and death take place only by the mercy of the Supreme Lord.
Om Gana Timirandhasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurn Miditam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Sthapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupakadamahyam Dadhati Shapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Jatapadakamanam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Shagrashatam Shahagana Raganatam Vitam Stam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savatutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Shahagana Lodita Sri Vishakhan Vitamscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindho Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hori Priye Vancha Gopatarubhyascha Kripa Sindho Pyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Nagatata Udbhava Prakriti Purushayor Ajayor Upayad Yuja Bhavancha Shubrito Jala Bubudavat Tvai na ime Tato Vivitanama Gunai Pradame Sarita Ivarnave Madhuni Nidiyor Ashesha Rasaha. Cell phone check, please. Everyone check to see that your cell phone is in silent mode.
हरे कृष्णा सब लोग थोड़ा अपना मोबाइल फोन को थोड़ा साइलेंट मोड में कीजिए कृपया.
Are we doing just English or are we doing some translation? Okay, good. In the previous verse, the word was used, ajayor, ajani, which may have given the impression that the living being comes into existence at some particular time. So the personified Vedas want to dispel that misunderstanding. Prakriti Purusha, Prakritim Purusha, Jaiva Vidyanadi Bhavapi in the Bhagavad Gita. The living entities have no beginning, and material nature also has no beginning. Prakritim Purushas Jaiva, Prakriti Purushas Jaiva Vidyanadi Bhavapi. Vikarams Chagunans Jaiva Vidhi Prakriti. So many things happen due to our contact with material nature. And by that contact we may appear to be born, but the living being is eternal, and material nature is also existing since time immemorial. Yeah, one might also, because Jatasvihi Drugo Mrityur, so one might think that, so if the living being come into existence, then they're also destroyed. But Najayate Mriyate Va Kadacha. If the living beings were just arbitrarily created and destroyed, there'd be no way to explain their karma, their previous, why they're born in different species. Everything would be topsy-turvy. So here, yeah. So birth means that we appear in a particular body, and death means that we disappear from that bodily existence. But the living entities is eternal. Keep reading. combination of material nature.
The combination of material nature and her controller that produces the numerous conditioned beings in material creation is likened here to the combination of water and air that produces countless bubbles of foam on the surface of the sea. Just as the efficient cause air impels the ingredient cause water to form itself into bubbles, so by his glance the Supreme Purusha inspires Prakriti to transform herself into the array of material elements and the innumerable material forms manifest from those elements. Prakriti thus serves as the Upadana Karana or ingredient cause of creation. In the ultimate issue, however, since she is also an expansion of the Supreme Lord, it is the Lord alone who is ingredient cause as well as the efficient cause. This is as stated in the Taittiriya Upanishad 2.2.1. Tasmad va etasmat atmana akasa sambhutah. From this Supreme Soul, ether evolved, and so Kamayata Bahusyama Prajayeya. He desired, let me become many by expanding into progeny. The individual Jiva souls are not created when born from the Supreme Lord and Prakriti, nor are they destroyed when they merge back into the Lord, rejoining Him in the pleasure pastimes of His eternal kingdom. And in the same way as the infinitesimal Jivas can appear to undergo birth and death without any factual change, the Supreme Lord can send forth and withdraw His emanations without Himself undergoing any transformation. Thus the Brihad Aranyaka Upanishad affirms, Avinasi Vareyam Atma. This Atma is indeed indestructible, a statement that can be applied to both the Supreme Soul and the subordinate Jiva Soul.
The demons think that entirely by the combination of Prakriti and Purusha, material nature, or just by Prakriti actually, the living beings come into existence. That theory is referred to in Bhagavad Gita in the second chapter. Tachainam nityajatam nityam vav manyase vratam. Tatapi tvam mahabhavam tvam shochitavam. Even if you think that the consciousness comes into being at some point and then is destroyed forever, and still you have nothing to lament for. Who'd lament over a batch of chemicals? So in that way, Krishna was referring to an atheistic theory existing at the time that Bhagavad Gita was spoken. Matter is everything. Consciousness is just a manifestation of matter. So that's also rejected. The living entity is eternal, and he appears when the soul is injected into the material nature. The material nature provides the ingredients. Tasam Brahma Mahadyonir Ham Bija Pradapita. And the Lord provides the seed of consciousness. That seed of consciousness is also eternal. It's not created when the Lord injects it into the womb of the material nature, any more than the Jiva soul is created when injected into the womb of the mother. All right.
As explained by Srila Sridhar Swami, the dissolution of living beings' material condition occurs in two ways. partial and complete. Partial dissolution occurs when the soul experiences dreamless sleep, when he leaves his body, and when all souls enter the body of Mahavishnu at the time of universal annihilation. These different types of dissolution are like the mixing of nectar brought by bees from different kinds of flowers. The different flavors of nectar represent the dormant individual karmic reaction of each living entity, which still exists but cannot easily be distinguished from one another. In contrast, the ultimate dissolution of the soul's material condition is his liberation from samsara, which is like the flowing of rivers into the ocean. As the waters from different rivers merge together after entering the ocean and become indistinguishable from one another, so the false material designation of the jivas are given up at the time of liberation, and all the liberated jivas once again become equally situated as servants of the Supreme Lord. The Upanishad describe this dissolution as follows: Yatha somya madhukrito nististhanti nanatyayanam vrikshanam rashan samavaharanam ekatam sangayanti te yatha tatra na vivekam lavante amusyaham vrikhasya rasho asmi amusyaham rasho asmiti evam eva khalu somye ma sarva praja sati sampadyana viduha sati sampadyamahe. My dear boy, this partial dissolution resembles what happens when honeybees collect honey by extracting the nectar from the flowers of various kinds of trees and merge it all into a single mixture. Just as the mixed nectars cannot distinguish, I am the juice of such and such flower, or I am the juice of another flower, so dear boy, when all these living entities merge together, they cannot consciously think, now we have merged together. Chandogya Upanishad says, Yathanatya Syandamana Samudre Astam Gacchanti Nama Rupe Vihaya Tatha Vidwan Nama Rupad Vimukta Parat Param Purusham Upeiti Divyam. As rivers flow to their dissolution in the sea, giving up their names and forms at their destination, so the wise man who becomes free from material names and forms attains the supreme absolute, the wonderful personality of Godhead. Mundaga Upanishad. Sri Sridhar Swami prays, Yasmin udyat vilayam apiyat bhati vishwam layado jivo petam guru karunaya kevalatmo bhava budhe atyantantam brajati sahasa sindhuvat sindhu madhye madhye chittam tribhuvana gurum bhavayetam nishingham. The Supreme Lord is self-effulgently omniscient. By His great mercy, this universe, which is subject to repeated creation and destruction, remains present within Him after merging back into Him along with the living entities at the time of cosmic dissolution. This total withdrawal of the universal manifestation occurs suddenly, like the flowing of a river into the ocean. Within the core of my heart, I meditate upon that master of the three worlds, Lord Narisingha.
So there are partial dissolutions of the living being's existence. One partial dissolution is when he dies. Another partial dissolution is when he's in deep sleep. Deep sleep means not even dreaming. So then practically his existence is dissolved. And another time is when all the living beings are merged into the body of Mahavishnu. Then also he's dissolved. Avyaktadini bhutani vyaktamadhyani bharata. Avyakta nirananya. The living beings are dissolved, and then they come out, and they're dissolved again. Death means dissolved, then again appearing, then dissolved to the next death. Deep sleep means our existence is dissolved, then again we come out. And merging into the Mahavishnu, same thing. It's not that when we merge into Mahavishnu, that's it, now our existence is finished forever. But we're asleep within the body of the Mahavishnu. So these are partial dissolutions. And complete dissolution of the living entity is when he attains liberation. That dissolution means his material existence is dissolved entirely, and his spiritual existence carries on. Avidyam mrityum tirtva vidyayam mritam ashnute. Srila Prabhupada glosses these verses in Krishna book. The theory of the Asuras is that the living entities are born of material nature, or Prakriti, in touch with the Purusha. This theory also cannot be accepted because both the material nature and the Supreme Personality of Godhead are eternally existing. Neither the material nature nor the Supreme Personality of Godhead can be born. The Supreme Lord is known as Aja, or unborn. Similarly, the material nature is called Aja. Both of these terms, Aja and Aja, mean unborn. Because both the material nature and the Supreme Lord are unborn, it's not possible that they can beget the living entities. But it's accepted in the Vedic literature that as water in contact with air sometimes presents innumerable bubbles, so a combination of material nature and the Supreme Person causes the appearance of the living entities within the material world. The wind blows on the water and creates bubbles. So the Lord places the living entities in touch with material nature, and then all sorts of things bubble up. As bubbles in the water appear in different shapes, the living entities also appear in the material world in different shapes and conditions, influenced by the modes of material nature. Therefore, it's not improper to conclude that the living entities appearing within this material world in different shapes, such as human beings, demigods, animals, birds, and beasts, all get their respective bodies due to different desires. No one can say when such desires were awakened in them, and therefore it is said, anadi karma. The cause of such material existence is untraceable. No one knows when material life began, but it's a fact that it does have a beginning point, because originally every living entity is a spiritual spark. As a spark falling onto the ground from a fire has a beginning, so a living entity's coming to this material world has a beginning, but no one can say when. Even though during the time of dissolution, all the conditioned souls remain merged within the spiritual existence of the Lord, as if in deep sleep. Their original desires to lord it over the material nature do not subside. Again, when there's cosmic manifestation, they come out to fulfill the same desires, and therefore they appear in different shapes, different species of life. So that at the time of death, we continue to exist, and therefore we come out with our desires. The desires produce the next body. When we merge into the body of Mahavishnu, we come out again in different species, according to the different desires. The desires haven't gone away. When we're in deep sleep, there's no thought. But when we wake up again, we still have our desires. Let me do this, let me do that. So these different kinds of merging don't mean that the living entity ceases to exist. He still has his individuality, and therefore his desires reappear. The living entities merged into the Supreme at the time of dissolution are compared to honey. In the honeycomb, the tastes of different flowers are conserved. When one drinks honey, one cannot distinguish what kind of honey has been collected from what sort of flower, but the palatable taste of the honey presupposes that the honey is not homogeneous, but is a combination of different tastes. You get honey, and it's not just, how is it collected from different flowers? The bees collect from different flowers, different kinds of flowers. And so you may get a honey that has like one taste, but that one taste is like a combination of this taste and that taste. Or you taste some preparation. It has one taste, but the taste is from different spices, different ingredients. So there's variety even in the oneness. Another example is that although different rivers ultimately mix with the water of the sea, this does not mean that the individual identities of the rivers are thereby lost. Although the water of the Ganges and the water of the Jamuna mix with the water of the sea, the river Ganges and river Jamuna still continue to exist independently. They both merge into the ocean, but there's still the Ganges, there's still the Jamuna. The merging of different living entities into Brahma at the time of dissolution involves the dissolution of different types of bodies. But the living entities, along with their different tastes, remain individually submerged in Brahma till another manifestation of the material world. As the salty taste of seawater and the sweet taste of Ganges water are different, and this difference continuously exists, so the difference between the Supreme Lord and the living entities continuously exists, even though at the time of dissolution they appear to merge. The conclusion is, therefore, that even when the living entities become free from all contamination of material conditions and merge into the spiritual kingdom, their individual tastes in relationship with the Supreme Lord continue to exist. Tato mam tattvato gyatva vishate tadanantaram. The time of liberation, one enters into that unlimited existence, but one maintains one's individuality, just as the Ganges and the Jamuna, which merge into the sea, maintain their individual existence. Any questions? Or comments? Yeah?
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you for a wonderful class. How this knowledge can help me?
How can this knowledge help you?
Yeah, to come out of the influence of material nature.
To come out of the
influence of material
influence.
nature.
This is self-realization. Self-realization means we should know who we are. we should know our relationship with the Absolute, and particularly it means we should know that we're not absolutely one with the Absolute. Yeah, that's the ultimate point. If we think that at the time of dissolution, I regain my eternal identity because I become one with the Absolute Truth in all respects, where I realize that I was always one with the Absolute Truth, then we lose everything. So we have to understand our constitutional position so that we can engage in the service of Krishna. Is that okay? Vairagya Vidya, Nija Bhakti Yoga. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu emphasizes these three things: detachment, knowledge, and devotional service. If we're perfectly on the platform of pure spontaneous devotional service, we don't need any of this knowledge. The gopis don't need to know about any of these points. But if we're not on that platform, then we should understand these things. That will help us in Bhakti Yoga. Is that okay? Something else?
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Maharaj, I am having difficulty to understand the analogy of river and sea. So is there any alternate example which can help me understand the merging of souls in Mahavishnu?
The river and the sea. The rivers merge into the ocean, right? That example we hear a lot. The rivers, just as the rivers merge into the ocean, we all merge into the Absolute Truth, the Brahma. Right? That's the Mayavadi example. It's there in Shastra. But what does it mean? Does it mean that when I merge into Brahma, I become absolutely one with Brahma and my individual existence ceases to exist? No. And the example is very simple. Does the Ganges merge into the Bay of Bengal? Ganga Sagara? It merges, right? It merges into the ocean. And the Jamuna also merges. But, or you can see in Mayapur, have you seen Saraswati and the Ganga? They merge, right? Those you've been to Mayapur, so you've seen the Jalangi and the Ganga merge, right? They become one. And yet, there's still a Jalangi and there's still a Ganga. Is there still a Jalangi? Yes? No? No? Jalangi's not there anymore?
Means after merging, on the way forward, it is no more.
You don't see, but Jalangi is still there, and Ganga is still there. They're still there. We don't see. Or for a while you see it's dark here and light there. But even when they merge, they're the same. And you need another example, then the honeycomb example is given. That in the honeycomb, it appears that the honey is all one. But there's different tastes in the honeycomb, in the honey. Some honey has been collected from mogra flower, some honey has been collected from champak flower, some honey has been collected from some other flower, and all of those tastes are there in the honey. Although it appears that they're all one, but there's still individuality contributing to that taste.
But Maharaj, from Mahavishnu, souls come back to their existence.
From the Mahavishnu, the soul has come into existence. No, the soul is eternally existing, but he's injected by Mahavishnu into material nature. He's not created by Mahavishnu. Is that okay?
Yes, Maharaj. Thank you very much.
Does that answer the doubts that you had?
Yes, Maharaj.
Okay. At some hour, 150 people pack into one of these train cars. Local train, passenger train. 150 people pack into the train car, and they all merge. Right? But then, sometime later, 150 people come out of the train car. And this one goes to this office, that one goes to that office, this one, this one, this one, this one. Although they were all merged in that one car, they had their individuality before they entered the car, they have their individuality later. Or, 50 men enter the army, and then they all become one. They all have shaved heads, they all have khaki uniforms, they all carry the same rifles, they all do exactly this, they act as one unit. But then when they retire from the army, this one goes here because they had individual desires, individual programs, so they go back where they left off. So individual karma is there, individual desire is there, individual existence is there. Prabhupada gives elsewhere another example, that if the living entities were all one, as the Mayavadis say, there's only one soul, really. It's only by illusion that we think that there's a multiplicity of souls, right? Really, there's only one, and only due to the covering of Maya does it appear that there's many. All right, then as soon as one soul is liberated, all the souls would be liberated. There's really only one soul, so as soon as one is liberated, and people come and they'll give this theory, you can ask them, is your guru liberated? Yes, then everyone should be liberated. One guru, Mayavadi guru, like Prabhupada used to sign his letters, your ever well-wisher. So this Guruji, he would sign his letters, your own true self. But if I'm your own true self and I'm liberated, then you should be liberated also. Which you're not. And therefore there's a difference. There has to be a difference between the guru and the disciple. The guru is liberated and the disciple's not liberated. But if the guru and the disciple were one, as soon as the guru is liberated, the disciple would be liberated. Yes.
Maharaj, Prabhupada gives this example that a green bird enters into a green tree.
Shiva Goswami gives that example.
So they appear that they have merged.
Yes.
But they are different.
Yes. Very good. Thank you. Perfect example. Shiva Goswami. You see this in Vrindavan. The green parrots enter into the green tree, and they're one. But then the green parrots fly out of the green tree, and they're individual again. They were always individual, but now you see that they were individual. What is liberation? We're running after liberation. So what is liberation? The complete liberation. Liberation is defined in Srimad Bhagavatam in the second canto. Muktir hidvanyata rupam swarupena vyavastiti. Hidvanyata rupam. Anyata rupam means false form, false identity. I'm Bengali. I'm Marathi. I'm American. I'm Indian. I'm white. I'm black. I'm man. I'm woman. I'm this. I'm that. This is all anyata rupa, a false form. This body is a false form. And my identification with the subtle forms, this is all Maya. But now I'm thinking this is reality. I'm young, I'm old, I'm thick, I'm thin, I'm fat. So mukti means hitva anyata rupam, to give up all this false identity. But that's half the story. The other half is swarupena vyavastiti, to be situated in one's real form. If I give up my false form, it doesn't mean now I have no form. Just like someone is masquerading, a clown is masquerading as someone else. So if he gives up his clown outfit, it doesn't mean now he's nothing. He's something, but not what he was dressed as. So when I give up my false form, still I have a real form. So mukti means to be situated in one's real form. Just a sick man, he's situated in his diseased form. But health doesn't mean that now my disease is over, end of story. To see Godhead in everything, living, non-living. That means there has to be two things. There has to be you and there has to be Godhead. If liberation means to see God everywhere, so that means there has to be the seer and there has to be God. The Mayavadi theory and personalist theory is that there's only one. There's only God. And I'm also not different from God, so there's really ultimately one. Soham. Hum Brahmasmi, Soham. They pull out a few slogans. So, Aham Brahmasmi, I'm Brahma. But that doesn't mean Aham Param Brahmasmi. In the Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna says, Param Brahma, Param Dhamma. You're Param Brahma. I'm also Brahma, but I'm not Param Brahma. You're Param Brahma. Maya means to think that I'm something that I'm not. To think that I'm this body, that's Maya. To think that I'm the mind, that's Maya. And to think that I'm God is the last snare of Maya. Is that okay? If my real swarup is that I'm the servant of Krishna. Jiver Swarupoy Krishner Nityadash. I'm the eternal servant. That's my real form. So it's like my diseased form is the form of a person who's walking on crutches and eating blended apples. And he said, and that also feeling pain. But my real form is not just no pain, no crutches. But when I resume my natural activities, I go back to work, I go back to my family affairs, That's my healthy condition. And now I have diseased activities. I'm just trying to enjoy some happiness in the material sphere. And when I'm frustrated, then I want to have no identity, no happiness, no suffering, no nothing. But real liberation, and I call that liberation, now I'm not suffering anymore. But real liberation is not just no suffering, but it's enjoyment at my real activities. So when I give up my false activities and I resume my eternal activities of devotional service, bhakti, that's liberation. Muktir hitvanyata rupa, sarvayavastita. Okay. Do we stop now? Is that what we do? Do I take another question? Who's... Okay. Hitvanyata rupa. Yes.
Very basic question. So, here when we are practicing Krishna consciousness, so we are being driven by the modes.
What?
We are being driven by the modes.
We're being driven by the modes.
So as such,
Put the microphone down and see if it improves. Now ask.
as such, we don't have a
Much better.
lot of say about what we can do, what we can't do.
We don't have a lot of
Say over what we
say
can.
over what we can do and not do. Yes.
As such, I feel that certain things we are bound to do by the modes.
Yeah.
So where does that free will, consciousness part
Where's your
come?
free will? Of so many things I'm bound to do by the modes. Tiny free will, Prabhupada said. Not that I have free will, I'll never sleep again. I have free will, I'll never eat again. I have free will, I'll fly in the sky like the birds. No. We're limited by this body. The body says sleep, we have to sleep. The body says eat, we have to eat. The body says you have to stay on the ground, you can't fly. I have to stay on the ground. But you have tiny free will. Tiny free will ultimately means you can turn toward Krishna or away from Krishna. That's up to you.
So during the course of our day, where does it actually?
Put the microphone on again. The microphone makes it harder to hear you. So just
No.
speak without it. During the course of our day, when we're going about our activities, how do you express your free will? You have tiny free will. You express your free will by following Shastra, Guru, and Sadhu. That's how you express your free will. Anukulyasya sankalpa, pratikulyasya varjana. What's favorable for devotional service, you accept. Unfavorable, you reject. Free will. It means the absolute truth. God, it's supreme. You can't divide it up. You can't divide it up. Like Shelda station, it goes together. You can't say what is Shelda and what is station. It's one thing. It's one thing. So what is Supreme Personality of Godhead? Bhagavan. Supreme Personality of Godhead means Bhagavan. That's what it means. If you try to divide it up like your honor, now, who's the your and who's the honor? You can't analyze it down to its parts that way. Who's the your and who's the honor? Your honor, it means the judge, right? So Supreme Personality of Godhead, Bhagavan. Divinity. So the Supreme Personality of Divinity is Bhagavan. Yeah. Mahavishnu is the collective form of the individual souls. No. God is not the collective. Mahavishnu is God. He's Bhagavan. Bhagavan is not the sum total of the individual souls. Bhagavan, the individual souls are parts of Bhagavan. But even if you subtracted all of the individual souls from Bhagavan, he'd still be Bhagavan. Tena chaktena punjita mahaprita kashasvita. Jiva Shakti is only one of his Shaktis. He has his Maya Shakti, he has his Chit Shakti, internal potency. The living entities are the marginal potency. The marginal potency is only one of God's potencies. Only one of God's potencies. He has other potencies. So even if you added up all the jivas together, they still don't equal Bhagavan. And also they're of a different nature. Jivas, they're all controlled. It's like if you added up all the workers together, you'd have the boss. No. They're workers by nature, and they need a boss. Add up all the workers, you don't get the boss. The boss is different. The boss is not a worker, and the workers are not the boss. And even all the workers together are not the boss. Okay. All right, shall we stop here? Thank you all very much. Hare Krishna. All glories to Sri